Okay guys, so what we're going to do today is just block in our local colors. We're going to do just step by step over the next day or so of our watercolor painting. So as of right now, what I did was I got my drawing for my reference, taped it down to my piece of cardboard. In this case I'm using a clipboard. Just tape it down to your cardboard. You want to run a piece of tape all the way around the edge so it has a nice border to it when we're done. I do have my reference sitting right here, and in addition to that I have my paints. Now because the brand new paints and they've been sitting a while, you'll see I squeezed out twice, and what that does is a little bit of oils that are in the paint are coming out first, and then I have the true color. So I have my bright yellow, yellow ochre. I ended up using my burnt sienna, my vivid red. I used viridian green, phthalo blue, and I already said about the red. So that's my color palette. If you notice, I don't have a lot of colors on here, so we want to build it up in layers, and we're going to work from light to dark. And again, we're just blocking in some the basic values, and that's what this video is going to be about. And then tomorrow I will go in and start adding the details. In addition, I do have a cup of water, and I have a round and a flat brush. The round for the flat for the bigger areas, and I like using the round for smaller areas. I have a little bit more control. Like I said, we're going to start with the light areas and work our way to the darker areas. So like, whoops. Grab a pencil. So like in here, this area here, there's some darks, but this is also my yellow. So I'm actually going to start with my yellow. Off camera, I'm pulling yellow watercolor, get a little bit of water. Show you. And then I'm going to go ahead and start blocking in just where that yellow is going to be. And anywhere that I have yellow is where I'm going to block in. Knowing that I can go over my yellow with some darker colors, I'm just going to go right over these circles here that are going to end up being a dark red purplish color. So that's the one nice thing about watercolors. You can go over it with a darker color and it's going to cover it up. With acrylic, you would have to let the paint dry, and then you'd be able to go over top that color. Back with my round. I'm going to go ahead and start dropping in some yellow on its head. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and let that dry for a second here. Clean off my brush. Do have to grab a paper towel. So to clean your brushes, you saw the other day, So it's stained, it's not dirty, just water. Kind of pull it, bring it, you can see that there's no color on there. So the next thing I want to do is, as I'm looking at my reference, I want to go ahead and I want to put in my lighter green in through here. So now you don't have to do this in this order, but this is the order I'm just choosing to do it. But I'm going to have to mix that lighter green. I'm going to pull some of my yellow. So unlike pastels, mixing on the paper, you want to mix on your palette. And I'm going to pull my Viridian green. And that kind of gives me close to the green I need. I could go a little bit darker with that. The other thing with this type of watercolor that we're using, it's stained, you can put it on the brush and you can bring it right to your reference, and that'll come into play when you guys take painting. You'll be able to do the same thing. You mix the color, you put it on your brush and bring it right to your reference. And I should have used my round, but I'm already committed to with my flat. That off and go back in with my round instead, because the next step is I want to blend in my yellow and my green and soften that edge. Go back. I have to add a little bit more yellow onto my palette. And for my palette, I'm just using a piece of drawing paper. Like I said the other day, you can use a paper plate, you can use a wet paper towel, piece of drawing paper. So I can come back in while the green's still wet. You can't do this once it's dry, and I can soften that area. And remember, as we're working, see how the green dried, so I'm not going to be able to blend that back in. As we're working, the photo I sent you is a reference, so it doesn't have to be exactly the same. So let's paint on my hand. I'm going to stick with my round. I'm going to do a little bit more watery. There we go. So now I know I can some of my yellow. Again, knowing this area is going to be darker, I'm good with that. And sometimes the less color you have on, pigment you have on your brush, the better off you are. So as it gets around to this side, they actually become a little bit more bluer, which we'll add in that kind of information tomorrow. Today we're just blocking in our local colors, our greens. Go back and do a little bit of orange here, and a little red. The other thing to take note is my style is a little bit painterly. So I like seeing the brush strokes. I don't expect your style to be that, that way. Your style is your style. So just like with drawing, I didn't talk about style. I didn't have you draw on a specific style. It's whatever comes out as you are working. I am good with. Give that a second to dry. As it's drying, I'm going to work on these 3 sets of legs right here for right now. If your watercolor is starting to dry out, just add a little bit of water to it. It should bring it back to life. Come on. So the technique we're doing is wet on dry. There's a technique of watercolor where you can go ahead and do wet on wet, where you wet the whole paper down and then you go ahead and paint over top of it. But things tend to want to blend, and I like using these watercolors because they're more like acrylics, in that where you don't get that blending as much. So I'm going to make a purple. Mixing my red and blue. Orangish color for the stem in the background. So I got my yellow ochre. That's what I'm using here. Darker yellow. And I'm going to add a little bit of the brown. Let's see. Kind of close. And that's what I'm looking for. And once again, I used the wrong size brush because I just had this in my hand. So I'm going to use my bigger brush. Grab more of that. A little brown. shapes. Tomorrow, like I said, we'll go back in and add our details. So the last part I want you guys to work on today is we're going to do this orange right in here. I'm going to go back to my round because that's what I prefer to paint with most of the time. I'm going to grab my red. But what are we supposed to do? What did I do wrong? We're supposed to add the dark color to the light color. I have red on my brush, so I'll take it and bring it into my yellow. So right there is my orange, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to throw it in. So now I'm going to go ahead and start blocking in where my orange should be. Thin, and you just got to go back, let it dry for a minute, and you can layer it back on top. That is about as far as I like you guys to get for today. So if you get to that point, that'll be great. Tomorrow we'll go ahead and we'll start cleaning it up a little bit more and adding more detail.